Hello, everyone, and welcome to the last part of the story of Lalita Tripura Sundari. If you guys would like to check out part 1 through 3, feel free to go check out the links in the description. I thought for this part I would read the story exactly how it is said, and of course, I'm going to be explaining some of the parts if any parts seem confusing. Without further ado, let's get to the last part of this wonderful story of Lalita Tripura Sundari. So, a reminder that this whole story of Lalita Tripura Sundari is a divine conversation between Sage Agastya and Lord Hayagriva, a form of Vishnu. Sage Agastya said, "O highly intelligent Hayagriva, the strength of Matangi has been described. The slaying of Ishanga by Varahi in battle has been described. I wish to hear about Sri Devi in the course of battle. After seeing the mishap of his brother, what did Bhandasura do? How far was Bhandasura enthusiastic in fighting the battle? With whom did he fight? After his brothers and sons were killed, who were his allies and followers?" Hayagriva then said, "Listen to this, O highly intelligent one. The story of Lalita Tripura Sundari is destructive of all sins. It is holy and it yields qualities like siddhis and anima. Siddhis are spiritual powers. During certain periods, as well as during transits of the sun, on holy occasions, and during the 5 Parvan days, it bestows spiritual powers and glory. It destroys all sins." On hearing that there in the battle his brothers had been killed, Bhandasura was overwhelmed with grief. He began to lament loudly. With his hairs disheveled and scattered, Bhandasura fell onto the ground. He did not get any consolation. He became filled with sorrow for his brother. Again and again, Bhandasura was lamenting. He was being pacified by his commander, Kutilaksha, and on being done so, Bhandasura got rid of his sorrow and became very furious. Bhandasura's forehead appeared ruthlessly dreadful because both of his brows were vibrating. His eyes became red like glowing coal. He sighed and breathed like a hissing black serpent. He began to hold his sword again and again in his hand and shook it. Suddenly, he said to his commander Kutilaksha. Out of anger, he began to produce the humkara sound. Like the cloud at the time of dissolution, Bhandasura began to roar. "My brothers and sisters were killed in battle by that wicked woman with the help of Maya. I shall put out the great fire of sorrow for my brothers and sons with the liquid blood coming out of the throat of that wanton woman. Go, Kutilaksha, and get the army ready." After saying this, he wore on his chest a huge and thick coat of mail, capable of withstanding the greatest impacts. On his back he tied 2 quivers. He whirled the bow when the excessive twanging sound of the string was as hard as his deep breath. Furious like the fire at the destruction of the world, Bhandasura rushed out of his city. There were altogether 40 excellent generals, including Talajanga and others posted at the eastern gate of the city, who were 4 in number, who had all kinds of weapons. The 35 generals included Kutilaksha, who was the lord or commander of all armies, and who was furious, and lastly, Bhandasura himself. Their weapons flashed, their hairs shone brightly, and with armor they marched out. There were 2,000 Akshohinis. This means armies. This army followed Bhandasura in order to suppress the enemy, and collectively, when Bhandasura went out fully accompanied by his army, only women remained behind in the city of Bhandasura. Bhandasura, who was a great chariot fighter, mounted his excellent chariot named Abila, to which 1,000 lions were yoked. He hastened with great luster or radiance like the fire of world destruction. The name of Bhandasura's sword was Gataka. It had the same shape as the Chandrahasa sword. When the armies moved here and there, dust columns were raised. Being unable to bear their burden, it appeared as though the earth went to heaven. Some of them who could not be contained on the earth moved along the path of sky. Some mighty warriors moved on, riding on the shoulders of some. Neither in the cardinal points, nor on the sphere of the earth, nor in the sky, could these demons be contained. They moved on with great difficulty, as though they were addicted by the close contact of one another. Since the pressure was very great, many of the soldiers were crushed and ground into powder by the wheels of the chariots. Some were trampled beneath the feet of elephants as they fell onto the ground. A loud roar, resembling the rumbling sound of the cloud, was given out to him who was moving along with all the soldiers. The universe became torn by that excessively harsh lion roar coming out of the mouth of Bhandasura. The oceans became dried up. The moon and the sun fled. The stars fell down from the sky. The earth began to move back and forth. The elephants from all directions became frightened. The heaven dwellers swooned. The camp of the Shaktis, the goddesses, became excited on account of a sudden and unexpected fear. In the middle of the battle, Shaktis held their breaths with great difficulty. They took up once again their weapons that had been dropped down with fear before. The circular enclosure of the fiery wall that had been calmed down before rose up in flames again. On account of the lion roar of Bhandasura, the twanging sounds of the bows of the army generals and the shrieks and sounds of warriors, the universe became filled up with sound. Goddess Lalita Tripura Sundari inferred that Bhandasura had stirred out, so she undertook to fight herself. Considering that the great fight with Bhandasura, the demon with vicious conduct, was not possible for the other Shaktis, Goddess Lalita herself took up the task. Her gloriously splendid great chariot named Chakra Raja Ratha moved ahead, or the Raja Chakra as it's called. The four Vedas were its four great wheels, the four Purusharthas, the four aims of life and Dharma, the four aims of life, Dharma, virtue, Artha, wealth, Kama, desire or love, and Moksha, liberation from samsara, were its great horses. Bliss was the flag fitted to it. It had 9 steps. The deities stationed on these 9 steps of the Raja chariot kept their heavy bows ready drawn. They had more than a parartha, one followed by millions of attendants. The chariot was defended from all directions by these who were stationed on all great steps. It was 10 yojanas in height, and the side of the base was 4 yojanas. Basically, it's describing the great size of the chariot here. And thus, the leading chariot Chakraraja of the great Queen Lalita shone remarkably as it moved on. When Lalita's chariot moved ahead, the other chariots with Matangi and Varahi moved on. The chariot Gaya Chakra went ahead. This chariot belongs to the goddess Matangi, and Kiri Chakra was behind them. The Kiri Chakra belongs to the goddess Varahi. The vehicles of the other Shaktis were Pararthas in number. There were man-lions, camels, donkeys, pythons, deers, birds, horses, elephants, berundas, sharavas, tigers, vatamargas, swift antelopes, and other animals also became her vehicles. Shaktis who repeatedly endeavored to kill Bhandasura and his Asura followers were of multiformed nature. Although the opening of the circular fiery wall extended to a huge, long yojana in length, it was not sufficient for the outward march of the army. Desirous of an easy exit for all the armies, the Nitya Devi Jwala Malinika enlarged the opening of the fiery wall further. Then the gloriously splendid mother of the worlds, the great queen of excessive valor and exploits, went out of the fiery city through the excellent opening. This is basically Lalita Tripura Sundari exiting out of the firewall. that has been protecting them all this time. The divine Dundubinis, war drums, sounded. Showers of flowers fell down. The great royal umbrella set with pearls was seen shining brilliantly. Pleasingly clear omens indicated the glory of victory occurred in the army of Lalita Tripura Sundari. Ill omens occurred in the army of Bhandasura. The battle between the two armies started. As the volleys of arrows spread everywhere, a dense darkness settled above them. As herds of elephants were being killed, the drops of blood flowing from them carried away the severed heads by which the white umbrellas of the asuras were concealed. Neither the quarters nor the sky, neither the mountains nor the earth, nothing was seen. Only the dust column was seen increasing in size. As the two armies fought with each other, a river of blood flowed. The dancing headless bodies appeared like the plants and trees on the banks of either side. Thousands of the hairs of the daityas or demons appeared like the tender shoots of moss. The circular white umbrellas shone like white lotuses. The series of feet of elephants cut by the wheels of chariots or by discuses of the heroes appeared like tortoises. The necks and cheeks of the great demons killed by Shaktis appeared like rocky slabs. When the chowries fell down with their handles cut off, they appeared like the foam in that river of blood. Broken swords of keen edges appeared like the dense thickets of creepers on the banks, the river of blood appearing to be sparkling with pearl caskets on account of the series of eyes of the Daitya or demons. Hundreds of vehicles of demons appeared like hundreds of fishes and crocodiles. Thus, river of blood flowed. On the fourth day of battle, beginning in the morning and extending to 6 hours, the terrible battle between the two armies ensued, causing fear even to the god of death. Thereafter, a terrible battle ensued between Shri Lalita Devi and Bhandasura. It caused a great deal of uproarious tumult in the great different quarters due to the excitement of the discharge of weapons. It was extremely terrific on account of the humkaras, the hissing sounds of defiance of the soldiers, and the twanging sounds of bowstrings, as well as due to the dreadful arrows which were taken out from quivers, discharged from excellent bows, which were capable of taking away lives. On account of her movements of her lotus-like hands while discharging the arrows were not at all perceived in detail. Listen, O sage Agastya. Listen, I shall describe everything that happened in battle. When one arrow was fitted to the bow and discharged, it became 10 when leaving the bow, 100 while moving through space, and 1,000 while falling amidst the army of demons. And when they came in contact with the bodies of demons, they developed into millions, or crores. By means of great arrows, the great queen caused very dense darkness, perceived heaven and earth, and pierced into the vital parts of the terrible demons. With his eyes turned red in anger, the demon Bhandasura showered arrows at goddess Lalita. Bhandasura discharged a great weapon named Andata Mishaka, the great darkness. Maheshwari, also known as Lalita Devi, dispelled it by the arrow named Mahatarani, the great sun. Banda, the great hero, discharged the weapon Pakandastra. Can I even say this word? I'll say blasphemy. Bhandasura discharged the arrow or the weapon named blasphemy in the course of battle. For dispelling it, the mother of the universe, Lalita, discharged the arrow or the weapon of Gayatri. Bhandasura discharged the missile Andastra, blindness that was destructive to the vision of the Shaktis. The mother Lalita subdued it by means of the great arrow or weapon named Chakshusmata, endowment with eyes. In the course of great battle, Bhandasura discharged the weapon Shaktinasha, the destruction of Shaktis. The goddess dispelled its pride by the arrow or a weapon named Vishvavasu. Bhandasura became infuriated and discharged the weapon Antakastra, meaning Antaka, the god of death, as the presiding deity. The goddess Lalita destroyed its power with the weapon named Mahamrityunjaya, with Lord Shiva, the conqueror of the god of death, as its presiding lord. Bhandasura then discharged a weapon named Sarvastras Mnitinasha. I butchered that one, I'm sorry. The weapon means destruction of the memory of all weapons. Chakreshi, or Lalita, destroyed its power by using the weapon named Dharana, the retention in memory. Bhandasura then discharged the weapon of Bhaya, fear, that made all the Shaktis afraid. Jagadambika, Lalita Tripura Sundari, the mother of the three worlds, discharged the missile of Indra, which bestowed freedom from fear. Bhandasura discharged the weapon of Maharogas, great diseases, among the armies of Shaktis, causing many of the Shaktis to have problems with the lungs, and other thousands of other diseases began to spread. In order to achieve their destruction and prevention, Lalita, the great goddess, discharged the great weapon of the great mantra of the three names of Lord Vishnu. Achyuta, Ananta, and Govinda rose up from the weapon. By their humkara, or their, sound, alone, they burned those diseases and gave relief and delight to the Shaktis. Achyuta, Ananta, and Govinda bowed down to Maheshani, or Lalita Tripura Sundari. They were employed by her to suppress sickness of her devotees in all the three worlds. They went back to their own abode. Bhandasura, the demon, discharged the weapon Ayurnashana, the destruction of longevity. The queen Lalita discharged the weapon in the form of Kala Sankarshani, the death-controlling weapon. Bhandasura discharged the dreadfully powerful weapon of Mahashurastra. Thereupon thousands of demons, very powerful with huge bodies, rose up from the weapon, such as Madhu, Kaitava, Mahisha, Tumra Lochana, and the Asuras, beginning with Chanda Munda, Chiksura, Chamara, Raktaveja, Shumbh and Nishumbh, and the great Kala Gayas of great strength, and others too, like Tumra, rose from the weapon, and all of those excellent demons smashed and controlled and crushed the army of Shaktis. Shaktis, now crushed and crumbled by the demons, cried loudly and sought refuge in the goddess Lalita, immediately saying, "Protect us." Thereupon the Devi became furious, and in her fury she burst into a boisterous laughter of challenge. From her laughter arose the glorious deity and goddess named Durga, and she had a cosmic form evolved by the radiance of all the devas. She wielded and wore the following weapons and ornaments: the trident given by Lord Shiva, the discus given by Lord Vishnu, the conch given by Varuna, the god of water, Shakti, who gave her the javelin. The javelin given by the fire god Agni, the bow and the pair of quivers or arrows given by Baruts in the course of great war, the thunderbolt by Indra, the goblet given by Kubera, the god of wealth, the great staff Kaladanda, the noose given by Varuna, god of water, a water pot given by Brahma, a bell given by Airavata, the sword and shield given by Mrityu, the necklace given by the ocean, and the ornaments given by Vishvakarma, the divine architect. With her gloriously splendid limbs, which were as brilliant and as sparkling as a row of 1,000 red suns, she made all weapons gleam and glitter. She appeared splendid with other equipments given by others, and thus riding on her vehicle lion Narayani, the goddess Durga, carried on war. Danavas, or demons such as Mahishasura and others, were struck down by the goddess Durga. She carried on in the same way as formerly explained in her stories. After completing that difficult task, Durga bowed down before Lalita Tripura Sundari. The wicked Bhandasura discharged the weapon Mukastra, or that which makes people dumb, among the armies of Shaktis. The mother of the universe Lalita discharged the weapon Mahavagvadini, the great and eloquent one. In the course of battle, the ferocious Bhandasura discharged weapons and created asuras, or demons, who stole the Vedas, the foundation of all knowledge. Those demons were turned away by the great queen by the nail of thumb of her right hand. Bhandasura then discharged the weapon named Arnavastra, the weapon of ocean, in the course of battle. There, at the army of Shaktis, then began to sink down in a flood of uncontrollable waters. The primordial tortoise, or turtle, was born from the nail of the index finger of the right hand of Shri Lalita Devi. For those who need context, the turtle which was born from the fingernail of Lalita Devi is a form of Vishnu, which we talked about in part 1. The Shaktis, who were supported by him by means of that huge shell, became delighted. They discarded their fear in the sea weapon, also known as the Sagara weapon. Then, by discharging the Narayana, Pashupata, and Mahakameshwara weapons, the great goddess killed all of the soldiers of Bhandasura, his 40 generals, and finally the demon Bhandasura himself. The Lord then quaffed the entire quantity of water in the ocean. Then the wicked Bhandasura discharged the great weapon of Hiranyaksha. Hiranyaksha is the demon which the Lord of Vishnu in the form of Varaha defeated, right? So anyway, from it, thousands of Hiranyakshas were born with clubs as their weapons. On being hurt and killed by them, the armies of Shaktis became agitated due to great fear in the course of war. They became scattered. Thereupon a huge white boar rose up from the nail of the middle finger of the right hand of Sri Lalita Devi. It was like the Kailasa mountain. This white boar is known as Varaha, one of the incarnations or avatars of Lord Vishnu. So you could say that from the fingernails of Lalita Devi, Lord Vishnu's avatars were born. Millions and millions of those Hiranyakshas were utterly defeated when they were smashed and crushed as well as torn by the god Varaha, a form of Vishnu. Thereupon, Bhandasura knitted his eyebrows due to great anger. Hiranyas and Hiranyakshapus, crores or millions in numbers, were born from his eyebrows. They were as brilliant as the blazing sun. Their weapons too were brilliant. They smashed and crushed the army of Shaktis as well as Prahlada, who was, as it were, the greatest bliss of the Shaktis. It was he who became a boy. He was afflicted by Hiranya and sought refuge in Lalita Tripura Sundari. The great queen Lalita became merciful towards him. Then, in order to protect Prahlada, who was in the form of bliss of the Shaktis, the great goddess Lalita shook the tip of her ring finger on her right hand. From it rose Janardana, or Narasimha, with the face of a lion and the body of a man beneath the neck. He shook the thick cluster of manes. His 3 eyes shone. Claws were like his weapons. He had the forms of Kala and Rudra. He made shouts of dreadful, boisterous laughs. He had 1,000 staff-like hands. He was ready to obey the commands of Lalita Tripura Sundari. Within a moment, by means of his claws, and as hard as a thunderbolt, he tore up all the Hiranyakashyapus who originated from the eyebrows of Bhandasura. Bhandasura, the great demon, then discharged against the goddess Lalita the extremely dreadful weapon Balindra, who was destructive of all deities. To destroy the pride of that weapon, hundreds of Vamanas came out from the highly powerful tip of the small finger of the right hand of Lalita Devi. They increased in every moment. They were mighty, with nooses in their hands. These Vamanas were born of the tip of the small finger of the right hand of the wife of Kameshwara, Lalita Tripura Sundari. They were highly enthusiastic and they had huge bodies. They tied with nooses all the Balindras, or the king Balis, born out of the weapon of Bhandasura, and destroyed the weapon too. In the course of battle, Bhandasura, the great demon, discharged the Haya weapon. From that were born thousands and millions of Arjunas with thousands of hands. Arising from the nail of the thumb of the left hand of Sri Lalita and blazing with anger, Parashurama, the warrior avatar of Lord Vishnu, rose and made the roaring sound of a lion. He tore up these fellows by the sharp edge of his axe. Within a moment, he destroyed these Arjunas, numbering thousands. Then the infuriated Bhandasura made a humkara sound out of anger. From that sound, the demon Ravana, with his sword Chandrahasa, rose. He was surrounded by Rakshasa armies, numbering 1,000. Taking his younger brother Kumbhakarna and his son Meghnada with him, he smashed the army of Shaktis to a large extent. Then, from the nail of the index finger of the left hand of Sri Lalita, was born Lord Rama, accompanied by his brother Lakshman. Matted hair constituted his crown. On the back he had his bow and his arrows. He was dark in complexion like the blue lotus. He repeatedly made the sound from his bow. By means of divine weapons, he destroyed the Rakshasa army in a moment. He crushed Ravana and his brother Kumbhakarna. Lakshman killed Meghnada, his son. Bhandasura then discharged the terrible missile of Dvivida. From it were born many monkeys with reddish-brown eyes. On account of anger, their faces became copper-colored. Every one of them was on par with the great devotee of Lord Ram and the monkey named Hanuman. They destroyed many demons. They destroyed many armies of Shaktis. Then, from the nail of the middle finger of the left hand, Sri Lalita issued forth Talanka, with eyes red like the midday sun. His middle eye red due to anger. He had tied a blue garment on his body. He was as pure as Mount Kailash. He destroyed all those monkeys born out of the weapon of Bhandasura. The mighty demon Bhandasura then discharged the great weapon named Rajasura. From that weapon, many demon kings emerged, such as Shishupala, Dantavaktra, Shalva, the king of Kashi, Pandra, Vasudeva, Rukmi, Dimbaka, Hamshaka, Shambara, Pralamba, Asura, Banakamsa, the wrestler Chanura, Mushtika, Utpala, Shekara, Arishta, Denukakeshi, Kaliya, and the twin Arjunas, Putana, Shakata, Trinavarta, and other demons or asuras, the great hero named Naraka, the asura Mura, who had the form of Vishnu, and many of them as well rose up along with these armies with weapons in their arms. In order to destroy all of them, the eternal Lord Vishnu emerged from the ring finger of the lotus-like left hand of Lalita Tripura Sundari. He made a Chaturbhuj, a group of 4 deities. They were named Vasudeva, Samkarshana, Pradyumna, and Ariruta. All of them had weapons lifted up. They destroyed all those great asuras who were in the guise of kings of evil conduct. They had been functioning like a burden on earth. When they were destroyed, Bhandasura became furious, and he discharged the dreadful Kali weapon that caused the violation and transgression of virtue. So, blasphemy? Anyway, or adharma, I guess. Thereupon, from the Kali weapon were born kings Andras, Pundras, Kiratas, Shavaras, Hunas, and Yavanas who had sinful activities. They violated the Vedas. They were against virtuous activities. They killed living beings. They upset the disciplines of the caste system and stages of life. They had dirty limbs. They smashed and tortured the armies of Lalita and Shaktis again and again. Thereupon Janardana, or Lord Vishnu, named Kalki, was born of the nail of the small finger of the sparkling left hand of Lalita Tripura Sundari, and he was riding on a horse. His glory was bright and brilliant. He made an attahasa, a boisterous laugh. By his sound, resembling the blow of a thunderbolt, the Kiratas swooned and died. The Shaktis became delighted. The leaders of the 10 avatars, or Incarnations of Lord Vishnu, completed this difficult task and bowed down to Lalita Tripura Sundari and joined in reverence. They had been engaged by Mother Lalita to defend virtue and piety in every kalpa, or in every time or era, through the births of these avatars. And these avatars, once they finished their task, headed back to their abode, Vaikuntha. When all the miraculous weapons were thus destroyed, the evil-minded asuras or demons discharged the missile of Mahamoha, great delusion and fainting, and the Shaktis began to become deluded and fainted. By discharging the Sambhava missile, that of Lord Shiva, the Mother Lalita split up the Mahamoha weapon. As the great battle took place, thus, with the continuous flows of weapons and counter-weapons, the sun, the Lord of the Rays, was about to reach the western mountain. Basically, the sun was setting, or rising. Then, by means of the Narayana weapon, the great goddess Lalita Ambika reduced all of the armies to ashes in the course of battle. Then, by the Pashupata weapon, which had the radiance of the fire of the destruction of the world, the great queen Lalita smashed and crushed the 40 generals. The only one left was the great Bhandasura. All the kinsmen of that wicked fellow Bhandasura had already been killed. He blazed with fury. He was a great demon of men of much strength and fierce valor. He had caused a huge havoc in the entire universe. The Mother Lalita, the great goddess, killed him by the means of the Mahakameshwara weapon, which had the splendor of 1,000 suns. The city Shunyaka, or the city of Bhandasura, was run by flames of that weapon. Suddenly it was burned down, along with the women and children, cow pens, riches, and granaries. Only the ground remained. Due to the destruction of Bhandasura, the three worlds danced with delight. After carrying this task of the Devas, or the celestial gods, Lalita Tripura Sundari, whose conduct was never blameworthy, who was the ornamental glory of the chariot, Sri Chakra Raja Ratha, who was the mother of the three worlds, who was equipped with all shining assets, and who was endowed with the glory of victory, shone brightly. All of Lalita Tripura Sundari's soldiers had been subjected to fatigue on account of their work in the battlefield. They had been burned by fire of the powerful arrows of Bhandasura. When the sun set, Sri Lalita, whose power was well renowned, brought them to her camp. O leading ascetic or sage, Hayagriva says, if anyone reads this even once, of the slaying of Bhandasura the Danava, carried out by Lalita Ambika, all his sorrows will be destroyed. He will be master of all the 8 siddhis or spiritual powers. Both worldly enjoyment and salvation are within his reach. Those men who read this narrative on holy days will attain flourishing, excellent fortune. This narrative of Lalita's valor is destructive of all sins. It is sacred and conducive to the attainment of all siddhis. So after the defeat of Bhandasura by Lalita Tripura Sundari, the Devas, aka the celestial gods, started praising Lalita Tripura Sundari, and started saying these beautiful things about her and praising her and whatnot. I believe this chapter is where the Lalita Sahasranama is. I could be wrong because I'm reading the English translation. But anyway, after the celestial gods, the Devas, basically praise Lalita's victory over Bhandasura, that's when they bring Rati. So if you guys watched part 1 of this series, I talked about how Shiva is an intense meditation and detachment from the world, and his consort Sati had just been reborn as Parvati. But he doesn't know that, right? During this time that Sati had died and was reborn as Parvati and Shiva is in deep meditation, there is a demon named Taraka, and it is believed that Taraka is destined to be killed by the son of Shiva. But in order to create a son, Shiva needs a wife, right? That's why the celestial gods commanded Kamadeva to shoot arrows at Shiva so that he could fall in love with Parvati, but Shiva killed him through his third eye. And from the ashes of Kamadeva, Bhandasura emerged. However, now that Bhandasura is killed, the ashes of Kamadeva are still there. So, yeah, after the victory of Lalita Tripura Sundari, the celestial gods bring Kamadeva's widow named Rati. And Rati is in complete distress. She has no gold ornaments. She is basically in grief that her husband Kamadeva was killed. And they presented her to Lalita Tripura Sundari and they said, please bring back her husband. We wanted Kamadeva, her husband, to shoot arrows at Shiva so that he can have a son to kill this demon that's causing chaos in the three worlds. So anyway, Ma Lalita feels pity and compassion for the widow Rati that she decides to bring back Kamadeva. And from just looking at the ashes of Kamadeva, Kamadeva was brought back to life. And so both Rati and Kamadeva were very happy and they got married again and everybody was celebrating their marriage. And they both took refuge in the feet of Shri Lalita. They were completely grateful to her. And Kamadeva, after he came back to life, he said, O Mother Lalita, the physical body of mine, which has been burned by Shiva, has been restored to me due to the grace of your beautiful glance. I am your son, I am your slave, please employ me anywhere in any task. So, basically Kamadeva was saying, I am at your service, I am here to serve you, what is your next command? This is basically him saying that he's so grateful to her for bringing him back to life, that he is willing to serve her. So then Sri Lalita says, O dear one born of the mind, O Cupid, you have nothing to be afraid of. There will be no obstacle on your arrow. Please enchant and fascinate the entire universe due to my favor. Right, so Lalita Tripura Sundari immediately says, hey, I will not stop you. Feel free to enchant whoever you wish to. You have my permission to do so. So then, because Kamadeva, I believe, is still afraid that he's going to be burned again by Lord Shiva's third eye, but Lalita reassured him and said, hey, you can enchant and shoot any arrow as you please, right? So then Kamadeva fulfills his duty and he shoots an arrow at Lord Shiva, who has been detached and basically isolated from the world. And all of a sudden, Lord Shiva is longing for Parvati. He cannot sleep at night without thinking of Parvati. He cannot eat or even drink without thinking of Parvati. He's just restless, right? And Kamadeva does the same thing to Parvati, the reincarnation of Sati. So Parvati, now being hit by Kamadeva's arrows, cannot stop thinking of Lord Shiva, that she feels restless, she cannot sleep, she cannot eat or drink, and the father of Parvati, King Himavan, is devastated for his daughter because he knows how much his daughter loves Lord Shiva. But anyway, after, Kamadeva fulfills his duty, Lord Shiva and Goddess Parvati get married after Parvati performs intense penance or tapasya, which wins over Lord Shiva. And they get married and they live happily ever after. And from their union, the son of Lord Shiva named Kartikeya defeats the demon Taraka. And this has a lovely ending and a happily ever after. And this is the end of the story of where Bhandasura is defeated by Lalita Tripura Sundari. After this, the celestial devas and Lalita Tripura Sundari head towards the abode of Lalita Tripura Sundari, which is Sripura, right? And they describe how enchanting it is, the entire city of the entire abode of Lalita Tripura Sundari, the people who live there. If you guys would like to know more about that, I will leave the text down below. But I really hope you guys enjoyed this series. I really hope you guys did enjoy this. It was my pleasure telling the story to the best of my ability. If you guys have any questions or corrections, let me know in the comments below. Happy Navratri, happy auspicious holidays, or whatever you guys are celebrating, and may you always be blessed. Thank you so much for listening and for watching, and until next time, peace and love out.